The narrative is that cameras are required in an effort to provide a more realistic learning environment. And when cyberbullying is pointed out, some GCPS staff members like Gabriella Peterson simply don't care and stands firm in the previous pretension that a learning environment is what's important and it's not. So, due to having an awareness of the cyberbullying that is going on via Zoom, I will not force my children to have their cameras on, and GCPS will not punish them in any way for my actions. Okay, moving on. Some GCPS constituents have a fear of change. It appears that some of that fear is based on pure ignorance and on the race of the 2 new board members. It should be noted that board members are elected officials. These women are here because more people voted for them than their opponents. The board has changed. The person with the most heat is the unapologetically proud Black woman, Dr. Johnson. Mary Kay aided the most recent attacks against her when she sent out an email that said Will Banks was forced by the actions of the 3 board members, and then she encouraged her people to show up. Mary Kay's actions are no different than Trump's incitement of the new Confederates, which led to the Capitol insurrection. What's more troubling is the insinuation that Mary Kay, that Superintendent Will Banks, lied to the community at large in his prepared statement and going digital. Both opposing stories cannot be true. So I ask you, Mr. Will Banks, are you telling the truth?
Or interrupting her. Let's be equitable in this room.
No one interrupted you guys.
Equitable. Manner.
Hello, my name is Katie Nelson and I'm a 7th grade science teacher for GCPS. This past summer I was hospitalized for 3 weeks after being diagnosed with pulmonary arterial hypertension. This is a rare chronic condition where the arteries in my lungs narrow, causing my heart to have to work hard to pump oxygen throughout my body. The pressure in a healthy heart is between 8 and 20. Mine was 115. Due to being high risk for complications for COVID, I was not allowed to teach in the classroom. My doctor filled out the ADA paperwork and requested I be allowed to teach digitally for the school year. The request was denied. After I was forced to go on medical leave, my students' scores on assessments decreased significantly. With 6 different subs, they had no steady teacher. The other science teachers had to split my kids up and teach them along with their own kids. This action gave them a class size of 60 students during one class period, which negatively impacted their students' scores as well. I urge you to look at the score data sheet that I will give you after I'm done speaking to see the impact my leave had on our students. This data comes directly from my school and shows significant evidence that the students benefit from having a certified teacher. However, I should not have to risk my life to teach them. I can teach my kids from the safety of my home. Not only is it illegal not to provide qualifying teachers accommodations, but it is also denying a world-class education from our deserving students. My administrators and coworkers are some of the best I've had the pleasure of working with. I have been forced to make the difficult decision not to return to GCPS next year in order to be able to join a different school district that will follow ADA laws and make data-driven decisions which protect students and staff. Please take this data and use it to make data-driven decisions before you lose any more staff members. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jesse Kangas.
Thank you, board members. I'm here tonight in support of in-student learning for children with IEPs so they can receive their appropriate services that they need. Currently, the solution right now isn't working, at least for my 3-year-old son. I mean, it's almost impossible to get him to learn digitally. And I've struggled every day working from home just to get him those services while the schools have been closed. I know there's a lot of ways to tackle this issue. I mean, we have a board here to try and figure that out. I'm just here to let you know, like, I'm frustrated and there needs to be some type of action. So these children with IEPs who need these services, you know, they need to be taken care of, whether that's, you know, having them stay in school in their contained classrooms or what have you. Also, alarming to me is that there was no talk of vaccines in this entire meeting. Is there a plan for that? Are these teachers going to get vaccinated as fast as possible? I mean, I think ultimately that's what the school needs, what these kids need is, you know, their teachers to be vaccinated also themselves. Yeah, I hope there's a plan. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kangas. Timothy Booker, followed by Brian Westlake.
Good afternoon. My name is Mr. Booker. I'm a Mountain View senior and a representative of the student-led organization Gwinnett Leaders. I'm here on behalf of my organization for the benefit of both faculty and students in this county, addressing the structural change within the GCPS school system in response to COVID-19. The issues we face are a lack of preparation, a lack of care and consideration from those who were put into positions of power by us, the people. According to the County Indicator Report, which is presented by our Georgia Health Department, Gwinnett County in its entirety has had 62,828 COVID-19 cases. Absolutely astounding. According to our state health department, we have some of the highest cases in our state. And as citizens of this great county, it is our job to reflect on how our schools have functioned during this pandemic. In an emergency board meeting on January 4, GCPS board members Dr. Therese Johnson and Ms. Karen Watkins presented a policy, a BOE advisory pandemic committee, which would be composed of a cross-section of staff and community stakeholders to develop and monitor a GCPS operational guide to safely open schools during a pandemic. They were denied. The question I have for the board members and to the superintendent is, if we truly pride ourselves as a county that strives for excellence in everything, especially in our school system, why not set up an improved structure of handling the pandemic that incorporates more of the very people that the virus has affected? The proposed committee's purpose was not to take away the choice of in-school or online learning. It was and is to bring better safety to students and faculty in the county through a trained professionals and community stakeholders, because giving our community a voice in the process of protecting our education system is absolutely essential. The last topic I wanted to touch on is the fact that teachers do not have the ability to go back in school, and they do not have the choice to stay home. And I think that that's very important to do. Are not our teachers' health and wellness just as important as our students? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Good evening, board members. I'm a proud union member and president of the Gwinnett County Association of Educators. I am also a taxpayer and concerned citizen. I welcome our new board members and express my support for your efforts to increase transparency. I encourage the entire board to make the details of the Pandemic Task Force public and available on the website, including members' minutes and meeting dates. I also ask you to include the new board policy limiting citizen comments to the board to 2 minutes. In November, this community voted for change, and I believe the kind of change many are seeking is embodied in teacher-powered schools. This model moves decision-making to those closest to the students, teachers, and other school-based support staff. These adults daily experience students as children, not as data points on a spreadsheet. They see firsthand our children and their families living with the trauma associated with this pandemic and its fallout, a fallout made worse by the racial and economic inequities that were pre-existing conditions. A teacher-powered school model taps into the strengths that are inherent in our communities by decentralizing decision-making, partnering with parents and families, and fostering collaborative servant leadership to meet challenges together. As COVID transmission rates, access to health care, multi-generational living arrangements, and essential worker status vary greatly across this system, I can think of no better time to empower local school communities through collaborative decision-making. This is how we keep our students, staff, and their families safe during a pandemic and beyond. I encourage the board to adopt a teacher-powered schools model, and I look forward to working together to finally build the schools all of our children deserve. I now wish to publicly honor the life and contributions of Maude Jones and the rest of our neighbors, friends, family members who we failed to protect during this time of pandemic. In their memory, let us redouble our efforts to the eternal struggle for justice and
Thank you,
dignity.
Mr. Westlake. Heather Slagle. Heather Slagle. Elaine Nietnam. Elaine Nietman. Holly Terry.
On Sunday, Dr. Therese and Ms. Watkins organized a private Zoom meeting where GCPS special education was discussed. Thankfully, a concerned parent invited me to attend. For the sake of transparency, I'd like to share what took place. First, to be clear, no state-mandated school closure means GCPS is 100% accountable for the upholding of my son's legally binding document in his IEP. And under IDA, in accordance with FAPE, GCPS is currently non-compliant and in violation of the law. This board is contributing to the educational divide among Georgia's most vulnerable. Federal law also states that if accommodations are made for a single student, enabling them to receive instruction within our building, even if it's on a computer, then the same accommodations must be made for SPED, most specifically self-contained. GCPS students attending class with in our schools with their parents that are teachers is in fact discrimination. You are breaking federal law. This Zoom meeting had several teachers who no longer work for GCPS. Some were tutors, some worked for DeKalb and the city of Atlanta. One even did not even live in this state. I demand, for the sake of transparency, all discussions involving SPED must have the direct involvement of our district SPED coordinator without exception. This 2-hour meeting was a bash fest for our SPED department by people who do not even work here. The input did not reflect our schools. It was a conspired attempt to create an agenda that discredits parents who attribute their child's success to our SPED department. When an educator stated that other countries close schools for years at a time and later catch students up a little at a time, Dr. Therese and Ms. Watkins shouted their approval while the attendees applauded. Board members clapped in favor of withholding services for years at a time because that's what countries at war do. Excuse me? The private meeting ended by Dr. Therese declaring this was now the GCPS Special Education Task Force. Absolutely unbelievable. Lastly,
Thank you. Kelly Pettit.
you will no longer make me
you.
advocating for my special ed
Thank you,
son
ma'am.
a race issue. Advocating for my son
Turn
who
the
is
mic off,
disabled,
please.
you will no longer make it a race issue. No more. My child
Ma'am.
deserves the freedom of
Ma'am, your time is up. Please sit down.
safety is guaranteed by the law. This is not about race.
Proud parent of a junior at Norcross High School, and I want to thank all of you who've been involved in keeping our schools operating during this time. We know it's been difficult, tiring, and probably very thankless at times. My desire is that our schools remain safe for all students and school staff, for everyone, all races, all ages, and that we approach that with sound information and common sense. With that said, I'm here tonight to express my support in handling school closings by individual schools or clusters that are facing high numbers with the pandemic. Closing the entire county of 180,000 students does not make sense. When they experience this high number of cases, we need to think of that as an individual school. We've done this in the past. We've seen this with the flu virus. This is not something that is brand new. I would like to continue that with our schools. This approach is currently being used by neighboring counties such as Forsyth and Cherokee, and has been successful up to this point. I ask Gwinnett to consider this approach as well. Finally, to address a different topic on behalf of a friend who could not be here tonight. She is a parent of a sophomore at Norcross who has epilepsy. These are her words. Digital learning for 504 special ed students is not working. For students who have a medical condition like epilepsy, digital learning full-time goes directly against her 504 plan recommendations. We need a different solution. Thank you again for your time and all of your continued efforts in keeping us safe. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Courtney Traylor. Followed by Megan Nash.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I appreciate it. I would like to tell you about my son. My son has childhood apraxia of speech. He's very smart, he's very bright, he understands everything. But with the apraxia, there's something from his brain to his mouth that just doesn't work quite right. Every one of us here tonight, no matter what our views are, we're all here for one reason. We're here to tell you what we think and tell you what we feel. My son cannot do that. I think it's something a lot of us take for granted, being able to stand before another human and speak and have words come out effortlessly. Last year when I picked up my son from school, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what his teacher taught him. I didn't know if he had friends, if he felt left out, if he felt included. My son could not make sound come out of his mouth. Thankfully, this past August, my son began in-person speech therapy through the county program. I take him to a local elementary school 2 days a week, every single week, where he receives in-person speech therapy. And I stand here tonight to tell you that my son has found his voice. When I pick him up from school this year, he tells me everything. Mommy, I played with Oliver today. Mommy, I zipped up my jacket all by myself today. Mommy, I love you. My son can speak for 2 reasons, and number 1 is God's grace. And number 2 is in-person speech therapy. And Mr. Wilbanks, I came here tonight to publicly thank you for opening our schools this past fall and for opening them again this spring, because in doing so, sir, you have provided my son the therapy he so desperately needs. There is no cure for apraxia. The only thing that helps a child with apraxia is intense speech therapy, and that cannot be done over a computer screen. Most people do not understand my son when he speaks today. I do. I understand my son. My husband understands him. His sisters understand him. He's got a long way to go. His words don't sound right just yet, but we understand him, and I just came here tonight to say thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Megan Nash. Followed by Addison Nash.
So, my name is Megan Nash, and I had an entire speech written, but after listening to that mom, I can relate 100%, and I'm going to try not to cry, as she just did, but these are emotional times that we're living in, right? I have 2 kids in Gwinnett County School. My daughter is in middle school, and thanks to you, Mr. Wilbanks, she was able to stay at her elementary school for 5th grade. You allowed her to stay there when the school actually was going to make her relocate to a different school when we moved, so thank you for that. My son is 5.5, and he is in special ed at Sycamore Elementary. He's been there for 3 years. I just want you guys to know that because of that school and because of the therapies that he's able to get, my son is thriving when in school. My son is nonverbal. He is 5.5, he's almost 6. I have no idea how school goes for him because he can't tell me. But I can see how he acts every day, and I can see his behaviors are majorly different when he is in school. When he has to do digital, he can't even turn on a screen, let alone sit there for hours. I have many videos of me filming to show his teachers what happens while he sits there. He kicks the laptop. He rolls the tablet across the room because he's frustrated. And why? Because he can't tell me that he doesn't understand because he's nonverbal. So when he goes to school, he has speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, feeding therapy. Okay, I know that we say mothers are superheroes, but I am not mentally and physically able to be all of that for my son. I admit it. I'm human. And I understand that we need to close schools at certain times. I'm not dismissing that at all. I know that we have lack of substitute teachers. I'm just here to say, can we please continue to allow parents to have the choice to stay home or go to school? And if you have to close, can we please consider letting special ed students go to school so they can continue to thrive in Gwinnett County schools and legally have their IEP goals be met? Because they're not met at home digitally. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Nash. Addison Nash. Heather Decker, followed by Lynn Abney. Followed thereafter by Sherry Murphy.
Long-time listener, first-time caller. Thank you all. It's very late, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Today's timely meeting. Today is the one-year anniversary of the first COVID case in the United States of America. We are 7 weeks away from a year from when we first closed Gwinnett County Public Schools. We don't have to agree on anything, really, but we are here for these children. These children are why you all sit in your seats and why we come to these meetings and stay up way past our bedtime and miss tucking our kids into bed. I'm here to ask you, as we sit here 1 year later, what have we done to solve the problems that this has posed to us? This is not a condemnation of any of you, but I understand that we have to do something. I am a proponent of in-person school. I will take that to my grave as my child's God-given right. But we have to do something and we have to work together. We have to look at these problems. Digital is now a part of our paradigm on a much larger scale than it ever has been before. And I'm sorry for the shaky voice, but if we do not work together to come up with closures on a local level, you cannot paint 180,000 children with the same paintbrush. It does not work. There are federal legislations protecting many of these children. You're not abiding by those when they're stuck behind a computer screen, as you've heard. You have to work with us, and we have to work with you. And we don't have to agree, but we have to do something. Thank you.
Lynn Abney. Sherry Murphy. Michael Tweedy. Valerie Curry, please come forward.
I would like to start out by thanking Superintendent Will Banks. The community thanks you for supporting Parents' Choice, despite pressure from some board members threatening your removal. Please know and understand that this large community of parents and teachers has your back and will continue to support you. I, like teachers, am an essential worker. I haven't had time off work due to COVID. At my job, we've had COVID cases resulting in coworkers quarantining. Like any company able to survive the pandemic, whenever we became short-staffed, management rolled up their sleeves and got to work. There's roughly over 11,000 teachers and nearly 10,000 administrators, assistants, and support. There are more than enough employees in the school system that surely a board member who has been put in charge of a district can figure out a way to maintain enough teachers in classrooms. It seems that what is needed are some good leaders. Board members willing to solve the staffing problem opposed to just giving up. That is what digital learning is a failure of this board to overcome an obstacle. It is a failure to educate that will result in failing schools and students falling further behind. I would hardly look at a hollow victory of a board member who ran unopposed as a mandate. Instead, ask the speaker, who is about 9 people behind me, how the agenda of Ms. Johnson stacks against the voters. Or ask Ms. Murphy how putting children first and opening schools catapulted her to victory at the ballot box. I would like to thank the board for causing the greatest organization of parents since the PTA. This organized group will hold all of you accountable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tweedy. Valerie Curry.
Good evening, esteemed educators. I am honored to be here and to call your attention to a topic near and dear to my heart. During COVID-19 and beyond, our current teacher roster and our teacher pipeline for the next academic year. This topic actually starts with my parents, but due to time constraints, I will just tell you that I'm a career educator. I'm in District 3. I look forward to working with you, Dr. Murphy, to make sure that we have highly qualified teachers. Based upon what I've also heard, I'd like to digress from my prepared remarks and tell you that I deeply feel terrible for the situation that our kids are in. But when we are flying in airplanes, we are told to protect the kids that we first have to put on oxygen on our own faces. So in order to protect our children, we must first protect the kids and the teachers, all of the teaching staff in the classroom. And we're expecting you all as servant leaders to explain and to be transparent about how you are protecting the teachers first and foremost. So before I was a school teacher, I taught in schools for 12 years. I worked for 22 years at Bell Labs and Belcor. And I can tell you that the transparency that's been lacking the last year about COVID is really shocking. And we are not getting our money's worth as taxpayers. And so we really expect you to do a much better job this year. And I think with the new board, we will get that. Finally, I'm requesting 2 specific changes, and that would be in our teacher hiring processes. I am specifically requesting that in hiring,
Thank you, Ms. Curry.
I'll see you next month.
Tina Manning. Followed by Christina Bradley.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board and Superintendent Wilbanks. My name is Tina Manning, and I've grown up in the Gwinnett County School District, Bethesda Elementary, Sweetwater Middle School, and Burtmore High School, class of '93. After moving for a few years to Fulton and to Cobb, my husband and I decided to move back to Gwinnett to raise our children. We have loved living in Swanee while we've been raising our 9-year-old twin boys. They're now in 3rd grade. Ever since they've been in school, I've been volunteering in their classrooms. I've been on the PTA board every year, and I volunteer as a room mom and also help recruit other parents to be involved in the school. I am also a GCPS substitute teacher and worked as a parapro in special ed last year. I am strongly committed to helping our teachers, staff, and students. I'm here tonight, though, as a concerned parent and want to ask why there's misalignment on the board. Gwinnett County has had an inclusive mindset since the early 90s. Is our focus still on performance and maintaining high performance standards? In Great Schools Report, it reads, members should work together for all students and do not promote personal agendas. Mr. Wilbanks, thank you for your 24 years of leadership. We wouldn't have your reputation as one of the most successful school districts in the country without your leadership. I am here for the 55% of families that want in-person learning. I am also here to be a voice for special needs children. They need to be back in their classrooms. Children are regressing, not progressing, while at home doing digital learning. I'm also sharing a message from a current parapro about to retire. With the current subs shortage, why are retired parapros not allowed to sub for other paras? Currently, they are only allowed to sub for teachers. Wouldn't it be in the best interest of these students to have a familiar face back in the classroom, helping them when the paras are out sick? And as you know, finding a sub in special needs is extremely challenging. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Christina Bradley.
Hi, good evening. I just first of all want to say I have a great love for this community and for this the county. I grew up here as well since '88 and have chosen, just like the last speaker, of bringing my family to Gwinnett County because of the world-class education system that we do have. So I am here tonight, though, because I don't want to talk about the numbers, because obviously everybody already has spoken about the numbers. We've had a lot of misconceptions of hearing about Gwinnett County numbers and not about the Gwinnett County in-school numbers around COVID and the spread. We've seen all the articles about the need for having the kids back in school, and from the Academy of Pediatrics of how important it is. And for me, school is not just about education. It is so much more. The school system also has a need to be able to support our children emotionally and mentally, and I do not think that being in digital is allowing those needs to be met as well. I'm here as a mom and I wanted to just share a couple of quick stories for you, as I just love our community. And I come from Jackson Elementary, where the largest and most diverse school within Gwinnett County. And I just wanted to share 3 quick stories of what I personally have experienced as I have sat with my friends who are single mothers who have cried in my kitchen because they have been cut their hours as a parent, as they've had to make the choice of whether or not to put their kids in school or to support them from a job. I also have a friend whose son is in therapy sessions and counseling because he had to be digital in the fall, and it has led to such an emotional toll that he's now having to suffer from that as well. I also just speak on behalf of my daughter, who's dyslexic and ADHD, who has a 504, and until you sit and cry with her on the floor because of the challenges she has with digital learning, you just don't know how important it is to have that choice for our students and our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Layla Corley. Layla Corley. Jana Himmelbaum. Followed by Bonnie Cole.
Hello. I'm a product of Gwinnett since Rockbridge Elementary, alumnus of Bergmar High School, now a pediatrician in Suwanee, North Gwinnett High School parent as well. The increase in depression, suicidal thoughts, hard drug abuse, and sexually transmitted infections that I'm seeing are breaking my heart. They are happening at earlier ages than I've ever seen before. That's just the immediate consequences for our children. Long-term will be far worse. Please don't sacrifice them. I personally was grateful for the parents' choice. However, I must advocate for all children. With vaccines for teachers around the corner, I feel I must take this opportunity to implore you, please realize offering a choice is not good enough. Digital is not good enough. It isn't going to prevent the increased problems I'm seeing. You can't track those numbers on fancy websites, but they should be very scary to you anyway. I have so many heartbreaking examples I wish I could share. Do you have the goal to get back to required attendance? Remember truancy? Is it gone forever? Mandatory attendance is essential. You've let sports continue. Thank goodness you have. They are important. But now coaches are telling players to stay digital to avoid contact tracing so they can play. Then we really are sacrificing education for sports. No one wants to go to school when their friends aren't there. If this had happened to me at my daughter's age of 16, it would have changed my future. I wouldn't have gone to school if I had a choice, I promise. You are here for the teachers, but the students are your priority. I'm here for the students tonight. Please don't sacrifice their future.
Thank you, Ms. Himmelbaum. Bonnie Cole. Bonnie Cole? No. Bonnie Cole. Susan Fuller.
Thank you, Chairman Blair, esteemed board members, CEO Mr. Wilbanks. I initially came here tonight to plead the needs of my grandsons need to be face-to-face. But as I sit in this audience and I've listened to so many stories, I'm really called to come to you on a different level. Over 2,000 classes were failed in many of our high schools, our low-income high schools, because those children had to be digital learners, or they chose, their families thought they needed to be digital learners. Many of these kids came to the United States traveling across terrain most of us could not even imagine. And they came here for a better education. They came here for the promise that the United States gives them. And many of them landed right here in Gwinnett for the promise of Gwinnett. 2,000 in one school, classes failed. That's way too many. I'm sorry. Many of these families, they don't know how to turn on a computer. They don't know how to do Zoom. They're lost. So through Zoom, our teachers are seeing the frustration of these parents not being able to help their kids. So maybe I am privileged because I do know how to help my grandchild. I do know how to help all my little nieces and nephews.
Thank you, Ms. Fuller.
All right, thank you.
Christy White.
Good evening. I'm Christy White. I'm a mother of three. I have one in each school level, one elementary, one middle, and one high. I'm also a physician assistant. I understand what it means to be an essential worker. I was driven out of fear and didn't necessarily want to go to my job on the first few days of this pandemic, but that was my commitment. And I also had a choice to decide not to work if I chose not to, and choose a different path if I needed to. Because I will scrape, borrow, and steal, not steal, but I will do what I need to provide for my children, and if I feel I was not safe, I wouldn't work there in my chosen profession. I love our teachers, I support our teachers, and I know a lot of them want to be there with our kids. I feel like I'm thankful for their commitment. I don't feel like maybe every person needs to be there digitally if they have concerns, like the person that was here and spoke previous to us, she probably should not be working. She needs to have that right to be digital. But not everyone needs to be digital. Not every teacher wants to be digital. I just want to implore you to look at the science and the studies that have been brought to you in droves before us, the pediatrician that spoke before us. Please don't make your decisions of our children's lives on opinions and fears and political agendas. Please make them based in facts. The recent studies all point to this from the UNC, Chapel Hill, Norway, Sweden. They're all showing that their higher vector of transmission is not in schools but at home. So let me state that again. We have a greater risk of getting COVID at home.
Thank you, Ms. White. Alina Hension. Eric Cross. Followed by Elizabeth Davidson.
Thank you for letting us all speak. It's pretty passionate tonight. My daughter has autism and is in a special ed class and needs to be in school. She gets a fraction of the education on Zoom. This year she has an incredible teacher and is learning the best she can. The special ed class sizes are small, and the kids wear masks, socially distanced within the classroom when she's there. Please allow the kids to start back to in-person learning on Monday. Families have jobs, and parents are not teachers. My family especially, as I mentioned previously, with a daughter with autism and learning disabilities, she needs to be in school. Being on digital is not the best for her. The second topic I want to bring up here are the Facebook post and the TikTok post made by Terrence Johnson. Your racial comments about only white kids wanting to be in school and black kids and brown kids is absurd. Many parents want their kids in school. The last topic is the petition circulating to remove Alvin Wilbanks. He has been in this school district for 24 years and has made it an exceptional district that people move here to be a part of. I'm not in favor of his removal, and the racist comments that she's putting out there are awful. I want my kids to be in a highly rated school system, and your kind of leadership is toxic. Your leadership is toxic here, and I think you should be removed or impeached or something. I want to let you know, I talked to the gentleman, the president of the United Way. I showed him the post of the Facebook thing that black and white kids are privileged. He snapped a picture of it, and he was blown away, so you'll probably be hearing from him. Just want to let you know that.
Elizabeth Davidson. Followed by Shanna Shell.
So before COVID, my boyfriend used to tease me because every time I meet somebody new, the first thing I tell them is that I'm a high school teacher. And he's right, it is. And it's because I'm proud to be a teacher. But these days I've noticed I don't do that anymore. And it's not because I don't want to teach. I want to be in a classroom 30 years from now. But I am heartbroken. I love my students and it's my honor to support them. But I need support too. Instead, I feel like my life and health are expendable. My lived experience in the workplace is not as clean cut as tonight's COVID PowerPoint. Numbers in our county are out of control. And I know that I pour my heart and my love into students every day, and they go home, and maybe they hear that my caring for my safety and my family's safety means I don't care about them, and nothing could be further from the truth. That's not the climate I came to Gwinnett to teach in. I want to go to work and enjoy being with my students. I don't want to worry that I'm going to be among the unlucky ones who die of COVID or who experience serious consequences even if they live. We should have started the semester digitally in hopes of our numbers going down, but we didn't, so now we're here because we're letting politics and personal feelings, not data, dictate our actions. Instead of turning digital versus in-person learning into a pitched battle that we repeat at every single board meeting, the board needs to decide by the numbers, using advice from epidemiologists and public health data from Gwinnett. We should not be deciding these issues based on what we want. Honestly, does anybody want to do this year again? Anyone? But without clear numerical guidelines, we're just having a fight where no matter who wins, everybody loses. I want to feel safe at work. I want to give my absolute best to our children. I want to proudly talk about my job again without fear for my health just constantly humming in the background. So consult epidemiological experts, create guidelines, and let's get those vaccines in. I can't wait. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Shanna Shell.
Good evening, board and Mr. Wilbanks. My name is Shauna Shell, and I would like to take a few minutes to share with the board the reason why I would like for you to reconsider instituting the one-year gateway testing waiver for the 2021 graduating class. Let me begin by saying that my husband and I have been residents of Gwinnett County for 20 years. I have fraternal twin boys that are now seniors this year in Gwinnett County, scheduled to graduate in May 2021. Both attended elementary, middle school, and high school in Gwinnett County. They both have a GPA of 2.9, still pressing to get to the 3.0, and they both have received early acceptance from colleges in Georgia to attend school this fall, which makes my husband and I very proud. But unfortunately, to truly celebrate these accomplishments, we won't be able to do that because one of my sons is still trying to pass the Science Gateway test. He's taken the Science Gateway test 4 times, and he's on schedule to take it the 5th time on February 2nd. With the 11 new introduced chemistry domain topics on a subject that he hasn't studied in 2 years, because he's a senior now, so he's not even doing chemistry anymore. This situation causes a considerable amount of stress for seniors that are trying to graduate and for parents that have aspirations of their children to continue on to college. I am humbly asking and praying that the board reconsider the 1-year waiver for gateway testing that was done similarly last year in March 2020 when the pandemic began. In closing, if the board decides to continue with this testing assessment for seniors to receive a diploma after my son is long gone, please consider looking at whether or not the gateway still meets its intended purpose. Look at how many graduating seniors are impacted every year by not being able to pass this test. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Shell. Tanisha Banks. Tanisha Banks. Amitra Stone Bradford.
Hello again. I was actually, I wrote some things down, but I want to address something that I heard sitting here today, and I'm going to take a few of my seconds to talk about that. I actually attended the meeting that Dr. Johnson and Ms. Watkins had online that the other parent spoke in regards to. And it's a little frustrating when you have private meetings in the hallway with a disgruntled parent about something that did not happen. From my understanding that meeting was taking place, it was open for everyone because it seems that everybody is making reference to social media. So on that social media post, it invited everyone, regardless of what district that you were in, to give information so they can further understand the needs of that. Maybe that's not the area that they know or that they're most qualified in, but they wanted to include everyone else. So I just wanted to say that. Also, I wanted to address the board for old business. I reached out to you guys and I spoke in June of 2020 in regards to an incident while my daughter was attacked by Dr. Christopher Ray at Gwinnett Online Campus. I still haven't heard anything from you guys in regards to that. It's still an unresolved issue in my eyes because it's my daughter. She's experienced all kind of trauma as a result, and you did offer me a olive branch, but that does not address the trauma and the hurt and all the things that she's dealt with while she's been in this school. He was never terminated while the black teacher over at Summer Middle School defended himself and was fired. So I don't understand why he was expendable and the other teacher was not, the principal was not expendable in that particular situation. I know that that's a forbidden topic. I like something that you guys said today, that teachers, there's teachers and those that support teachers, but to what extent do you support those teachers? And at what point are they accountable? So I guess I fit into that third category that you guys talked about, the one who's going to challenge that. Thank you.
Thank you. Tanisha Banks. Followed by Wilhelmina Keppel.
Good evening, board members. My name is Tanisha Banks. A union member of GAE, NEA, and GCAE. I'm a woman of my word, and I remember speaking at the board meeting, and I said to do about that. You cannot have unity without accountability and transparency. I'm requesting transparency of data, thresholds, and a pandemic task force consisting of community constituents, teachers, cafeteria workers, bus drivers, infectious disease experts, and epidemiologists, not a gynecologist. I'm quite appalled that the task force was dismantled in the height of a pandemic where Gwinnett is in the top 3 of cases, maybe even case number 1. Science and data is critical, and this information is needed in order to make sound decisions based on such science, facts, and figures. Teachers need a choice, just like parents. I'm going to leave you with a quote that's pretty profound. It says, "To the world, you may be one person, but to one person, you may be the world." Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Banks. Wilhelmina Keppel. Carrie Ann Foster. Heather Hartman, please come forward.
Tonight, you have heard from a very loud minority that is finding it hard to accept that our school board finally almost looks like its student body. If you listen solely to the loudest voices you hear this evening, you would not truly know what your stakeholders are asking for. 48% of GCPS schools are Title I. How many of those families can't be here to speak because they work traditional hours, don't have childcare, or are too scared because of their immigration status? Not all of their voices can be heard, but they should be. The district has done a disservice to all of those voices and the voices here this evening, to its students and its teachers, by refusing to set public metrics for a transition to and from digital learning. You have pitted these groups against each other, angry parents verbally attacking employees for wanting to keep themselves, their families, their students, and their coworkers alive. If you had presented such a metric from the beginning, the parents could have prepared better for what was coming. The community could have worked for a lower transmission rate, so all of us could have a common goal of returning to a safe classroom together. You expect high standards of your schools, but you refuse to set them for yourself at the highest levels. Because of this, you have sown division amongst your stakeholders at a time when we should be coming together to repair and grow our community. Digital learning isn't always as bad as some voices make it seem. Today on my Zoom, I had students who were able to do more than they normally would because we didn't have social distancing to worry about. One of them even said, "Mrs. Hartman, I'm so glad that I finally get to see you smile." So I ask you, please keep that in mind and have us be digital while you work on a metric.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Heather Hartman. Followed by Shivani Desai.
Thank you all for letting me speak. It's been a long day for you and myself. I'm going to read a quote. "Freedom is not merely the opportunity to do as one pleases. Neither is it merely the opportunity to choose between set alternatives. Freedom is, first of all, the chance to formulate the available choices, to argue over them, and then the opportunity to choose." I had a prepared speech as well. After listening to everybody else speaking tonight, as you can see, I'm still in my scrubs. I am a nurse. I've been working through this entire pandemic. I've been working since March. I go to work 4 days a week. I do sympathize with the teachers, and I would love to have, safety for all involved. I am thankful that you gave the choice to us in the fall and allowed our children to go back to school. I do not have special needs. I have 2 at Brookwood High School. I have 1 that already graduated, And I cannot say enough about this school system and you, Mr. Wilbanks, thank you. And I've spoken to many parents through the years, and it's unanimous that people have come here for the school systems alone. You've done a great job with the stellar reputation for education, and it's earned that reputation because of you, and I do appreciate that. As far as students, my children alone, when they go to school, they are required to interact face-to-face with teachers and classmates. They gain necessary confidence in their ability to speak to others and collaborate effectively. This is the one thing that they do actually, will tell me. My son loves to go to school. He loves to see his teachers. He loves to talk to his teachers. He finds it very difficult online to receive any feedback within any certain period of time. That's always been a problem for them. But I am only here as a parent.
Thank you, Ms. Hartman. Shivani Desai.
Hello, honored board members, chairman, CEO, and superintendent. My name is Shivani Desai. I'm a senior at Peachtree Ridge High School, and like everyone else gathered here today, I'm here this late into the night because I care. I'm here on behalf of the student-founded organization Gwinnett Leaders alongside Timothy Booker, a fellow student council president at Mountain View High School who was up earlier. This summer, several student leaders across the county established Gwinnett Leaders to create a platform for our voices. Over the past few months, our IGTV video discussions, petitions, and meetings have reached thousands of board constituents concerning community issues. We recently conducted an informal survey for parents, students, alumni, and faculty over the past few weeks, asking for the responders' top 3 priorities they wanted the board to hear. I am here on behalf of the constituents who were unable to announce what they have to say, and I'm honored that they have trusted me to be here today to share. Among the responses we've received were recurring themes, including reducing over-testing, clearer decision-making on matters related to COVID, committing to educational equity, mental health checks, and the school-to-prison pipeline in the community. We always love hearing from our board members, and I'm really honored to have the chance to be here today. In fact, when I was 9 years old, I came to my very first board meeting with my family members, and I'm grateful to stand here and see many other parents and community members speaking on the issues they care about. We have compiled 3 formal requests to the board. 1, the creation of a student advisory board to consolidate student interest in connecting to this advisory board as a standard process for communication to create policy suggestions. We believe that this could be similar to the concept of the Georgia Department of Education Advisory Board, and we believe all kinds of students, not just those who are academically gifted, should help contribute to forming this board and provide input from all ends of the spectrum, coming from different backgrounds and with different needs. 2, we would like to reduce standardized testing and workloads for students. Having taken interims, milestones, and gateways for the past 11 years in the school system, I am confident that none of my peers have missed the regular standardized testing we did not have this year. 3, I reaffirm the statements that my partner Timothy made about the COVID task force and respect the board members who have brought it to our attention today. We hope the board continues not only to recognize but act on student voices. I'm honored to be part of the school system. Thank you for letting me speak today.
Thank you, Shivani. Scott Bunson, followed by Jacqueline Denick.
Good evening. Almost good morning. My name is Scott Bunson, and I have been a resident of Gwinnett County for over 17 years. Moved here from New Jersey and relied on the reputation that Gwinnett County carried and chose Gwinnett County specifically for the school system. Glad I made that decision. Currently I have 1 kid in college, I guess not really a kid. 3 kids in the system. 2 in high school, 1 in elementary school, Parkview District. The experience has been extremely positive for all of my kids, and I'm extremely thankful that they are able to go to such schools that they do. And on that note, I'm here to publicly voice my support of Mr. Wilbanks. You've led Gwinnett County Schools for 24 distinguished years, and in that time it's become one of the most successful systems in the nation. Not many people can say anything like that. In 2018, obviously, we were awarded the Governance Team of the Year Award for all-around success in the district. I guess I just have a lot of questions for people who are so disgruntled. If things are so bad in our schools, why are record numbers of people moving here? You see construction all over the place. Schools are crowded. Why haven't people moved away? There's obviously something here. So why are newly elected board members supporting the removal of the superintendent who got us to this point? I don't get it. Why not support him and the other board members as you're elected to do? You guys have been in, the new board members have been in a position for a couple of weeks, and there's so much anger and frustration. There's been a focus on divisiveness and disrespect as opposed to unity, teamwork, and the betterment of education for all students. It's time to collaborate and focus on the improvement for all, not just individual groups.
Thank you, Mr. Munson.
Dang it.
Jacqueline Dennett. And then Madeline Mitchell.
Good evening, Board. Abridged notes. A board can only achieve excellence through the diligence of its members to be knowledgeable, collaborative, and to work by exhibiting the highest ethical standards. In the past few years, there have been a number of high-profile cases where members of school boards have acted unprofessionally by allowing infighting, factions, politics, and a race to undermine the work of the board. 220 Georgia school board members participated in the focus group. Here's an overview of the results. What is ethical behavior? The willing to listen, learn first, then make decisions. Ability to separate personal agenda from the work of the board. Follows the chain of commands, does not micromanage the superintendent or district staff, keeps student achievement at the forefront of all decisions, accepts and advocates the decisions of the board once the vote is recorded. The Georgia General Assembly passed Senate Bill 84 in 2010. SB 84 mandates each local school board of education is required by law to adopt the code of ethics that includes, at a minimum, the state model. It covers governance, recognize that the authority of the board rests only with the board as a whole and not with individual board members, and act accordingly. Support the delegation of authority for the day-to-day administration of the school board system to the local superintendent and act accordingly. Strategic planning. Reflect through actions that his or her foremost concern is for the education and welfare of the children attending schools within the school system. Render all decisions based on available facts and refuse to surrender his or her judgment or special interest groups.
Thank you, Ms. Denick. Madeline Mitchell.
Mr. Blair, I will send you my full notes, and it will cite what publications I got these from.
Can we do Madeline first?
Hi, my name is Madeline. I'm in 8th grade, and I'm here in support of in-person learning. I came here last year to a meeting with my parents. I heard a bunch of parents and teachers come up here and say that by keeping us in school, we were all going to get COVID and die. I don't feel this way. I want to be in school. A lot of my friends in GCPS schools want to go to school too. In fact, they said they miss school. There are a lot of kids in school who want to be in school, so please let us keep our choice. My school, principals, and teachers have been doing an amazing job of enforcing masks, keeping us socially distant, wiping down high-touch areas often, and making us sanitize and wash our hands at every chance. At the emergency board meeting on the 4th, Dr. Flint came and told the facts about COVID cases in school. Quote, "We, as well as the health department, believe we are actually decreasing the rate of cases by students coming to school. If we look at the total number of cases that have been actually spread in school, we had a total number of 56 students last semester. 37 of them were in athletics, which is a contact sport where students are getting very close. 19 cases were originated from a contact in school. This shows that the virus isn't spreading in school. It has been spreading when people aren't being careful on their own time. I would like to say that it is thanks to y'all that I'm able to be here and have these skills to be able to speak. So thank you, Mr. Wilbanks."
So thank you for having us tonight. I want to talk about true leadership and what it means, and for each of you guys, because now that we have new elected board members, you really do hold a higher level of accountability now that you've been elected. And I think about 180,000 kids in this county. Well, you know, if it all works out, you got 360,000 parents, and there's 1 million people in this county. I think about not just the kids. I think you guys know by now I'm for face-to-face learning, but the businesses in this county and the commerce that we have in this county, that's a whole lot of responsibility with a $2 billion budget. So when I take a step back, I'm not very happy with how things have gone as of lately. I have to think about, you know, what is this really about? Is it about the kids? It is about the power? Is it about you? What is this really about? And I think about what happened in January. We should be celebrating what we have that is similar, not what's the difference. And I listened to people all tonight talk about, you know, black, white, racial issues. You know, 50 years ago, would we have had 3 women on a board? What do we have alike that is together? This is something to celebrate. Not one person has brought this up. You women won an election, which is something to be celebrated. But then I look at the other thing, and you've come in like a bull in a china shop. And I'm like, what is going on with all these things that we're trying to change? We have a man here who's got his name on the building, who's had a successful run, and the first thing we're trying to do is kick him out. And that, to me, is bothersome. You know, when you get a new job, the first thing you want to do is come in and say, what have we done that's successful? And look at what we've done. And then maybe kind of edge into what's happened. You guys are successful women. When you want to be a leader, you want to lead from the top down. We have a few teachers here that are disgruntled, but most of them are happy. Lead from the top up. Wake up every day. What can I do to be the leader? Not the few people that are unhappy. Be the leader from the top up. That's what I want to encourage you to do.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Melissa Bunson.
My husband stole my almost good morning line. It was going to be so good. As was mentioned earlier, January 19th was the National Day of Racial Healing. According to Dr. Therese, and I quote, "Real racial healing starts from the top and it trickles through our system. We heal when everyone feels seen, heard, respected, represented, valued, and celebrated." Only 4 days prior to that, she wrote, "We must be more responsible with our words, especially during these times of white supremacist rage." Her board-affiliated Facebook page is littered with other microaggressive posts linking things like parents' desire for face-to-face learning to white supremacist thinking, and also a disturbing diagram called "How Am I Addressing White Supremacy?" According to the diagram, one is not in the growth zone unless they take proper time off social media to look internally and analyze their own racial beliefs and anti-blackness. What continues to trouble me and many others about these posts and her words is that they were made by someone who's supposed to advocate equally for all children in our county, no matter what color. People flock to GCPS for the schools. They move to Gwinnett because it welcomes diversity. And the comments and posts such as these by this new board member are hateful, hurtful, disrespectful, and irresponsible. Excluding any race is not what GCPS is about. I assume when Dr. Therese says real racial healing starts from the top, she means it starts from leaders. Real leaders empower a community to support their agenda. They rally everyone behind their cause by including them, capitalizing on the strength in their differences, and finding commonalities to truly unite us all. We deserve better leadership. Our students deserve better leadership. Thank you.
Mario Hunt. Mario Hunt. Ashley Tremblay.
We made it to 79. Wasn't sure we were going to get there. I have 3 students here in Gwinnett County in the Mountain View cluster. I have one in high school, middle school, elementary school. They're all graduating this year. And actually, 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, actually almost today, I have a school council meeting followed by an 8:31, and I would welcome, actually Ms. Watkins, one of them's in your district, I'd welcome you to come in. During those school council meetings, we go over CCRPI data. I love analyzing it, looking at it. We also go over discipline data on that, and I'd love for you to come and see what do we do? What are we doing in Gwinnett County? During those school council meetings, we often have a difference of opinion in policy, and that's okay. I haven't always agreed with all the decisions Mr. Wilbanks has made, I'll be honest. But you know what? I know that he has always made the decisions based on the best interest of all students. I was here celebrating the Broad Prize winning for mending the gap. You guys each have individual talents to make this school district amazing. You have great ideas for remediation of language-based learning disabilities. Let's get together. Let's get to work. Let's stop being divisive. Let's start being innovative. Let's stop having arguments and let's have creative solutions. Our kids need to be in school. Our kids need to be in sports. Don't cancel spring sports, and if you do, show up and tell those kids in person, not behind a computer screen. Our kids need each one of you and all your talents. And one day, I hope we can stand back and look and see, we had such great diversity, but we came together. And I hope we can say, are we proud or what? Thank you.
That was a nice close. It's the time of the agenda for the board and superintendent discussion. Ms. Watkins, would you like to start us off?
Thank you. Thank you, the community, for your voice. Your voice is what will help guide the board members. Your voice, supported by facts and data, is what will be leveraged to help us give clear direction via policy to our superintendent. There are many takeaways this evening. And I want to thank those of you who not only voiced your concerns, but also provided solutions. One of the takeaways I got from this is that your voice severely needs to be heard. And I think that we have an opportunity here. And I see, what I could see is us working, myself, working with the board, with the rest of the board members to create a board-sponsored task force committee that will champion all stakeholder voices, taking in consideration face-to-face, the virtual learning stakeholders, as well as students, teachers, all stakeholders, and work to ensure all our students and staff feel safe and secure during this pandemic. In addition, I see another opportunity for a board-sponsored committee, and it can in and around the concerns for racism. A board-sponsored committee that will consider having a task force to help to prevent racism in our schools, and also help to filter out within making community partnerships to understand, teach explicit lessons on race and conflict resolution, as well as self-awareness, personal and professional development, culturally relevant teaching, and awareness on how racial bias impacts discipline. I think the more informed we are, and if we are all a part of the voice, I think we would all feel better. At least I would hope. We hear you, and we need the voice of all community members to create policy that ensures all our students achieve. Thank you all again for sharing your voices with us, and continue to do so. And hopefully we will work together to make everything happen the way you need to happen. Thank you.
Thank you all for your voices. They all matter. Even though we may have disagreements, even though there may be some misrepresentations and some misunderstandings, every voice matters. So thank you for coming this evening, staying here so late to share your voice. I heard you. I also want to say, for the people who made specific suggestions, thank you. Those suggestions are very valuable in a way that we can sit together as a board and figure out specifically how we can address your needs. I encourage you to continue to reach out to your board members to provide specific suggestions and recommendations. The need for the clarity and transparency around thresholds so that people can understand when they are going to work from home, when the kids are going to study from home, or if they're going to go in person. I think that transparency is what I'm hearing the community needs. They need the transparency so that they can prepare. And I also want to be clear about not knowing all of the answers. I don't have all of the answers, but I am committed to working with this board as a unified team to figure out a way so that everyone can be safe, because at the end of the day, we understand that there is no replacement for face-to-face. We also understand the kids with special needs, regardless of whether we're face-to-face or in person, that we have to address those needs. I'm very, very conscious of that, and I just want to say that I'm committed to that. Now, the last point I want to make, or I want to make two more points. One is the pandemic task force. Again, for the people who support that, I do believe we have an opportunity to look at that in a way where we are inclusive and we have a bipartisan group, people who want to be digital and people who want to be face-to-face, to be on this task force with scientists, to have the tough conversations. Because only when we have those courageous conversations can we figure out a way to meet the needs of our students. Because at the end of the day, that is why we're here. We're here for the academic success for our students and also the safety and health of our students. And we care for our teachers too. We care for our support staff. We care for our bus drivers. We are human beings, and we have the responsibility to make sure that everyone feels safe. And now the last point I want to say, if you don't mind, is a lot of people have come here this evening to talk about me as, I guess, my posts. And I hear you. I think there's an opportunity for you all to understand that my dedication to equity does not apply to just one group of people. Equity means that everyone gets what they need to be successful in life, for everyone to thrive. All people deserve quality educational opportunities regardless of their race, their ability, their gender, their zip code, their color, disabilities, socioeconomic status. We all deserve that opportunity. There is no post that I have ever made that ever said to one individual that you are a white supremacist. There's no post that I have ever said that has been racist toward an individual. As a professional person with over 20 years experience in diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice work, I am committed to being an anti-racist leader unapologetically. Too often, our black and brown kids in this system have been disproportionately treated. In many ways, in our discipline area, the data is very clear. I support that, but it doesn't mean that I don't care about white people or brown people because I make a statement that is clearly supported by data that Mr. Wilbanks even said himself, that black and brown children had desperate treatment in our school system. Mr. Wilbanks said that. No one says anything to Mr. Wilbanks. So I just want to leave you guys
I did not
with
say they've been mistreated. I said the statistics are correct in terms of discipline there. I didn't say
well,
that.
that's what I said, disparate treatment. I'm sorry. I said disparate treatment. No, I said disparate treatment. I'm sorry if you couldn't understand. But I just want to, leave you all. Someone made a quote today about Martin Luther King, and oftentimes people use his words, and I want to use his words also. As an anti-racist educational leader, I want to share the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, and he says, "We merely bring to surface the hidden tension that is already alive. We bring it out in the open where it can be seen and dealt with. Like a boil that can never be cured so long as it is covered up, but must be opened with its ugliness to all the natural medicines of air and light. Injustice must be exposed with all of the tension and exposure it creates to the light of human consciousness and the air of national opinion before it can be cured. I am an anti-racist board member that will work hard to make sure that there is equity and that there is justice, not just for Black kids, but for every single child."
Thank you, Dr. Therese. Dr. Murphy?
Thank you, Mr. Blair. Thank you, Chairman Blair. Well, I'd like to, first of all, express my great, great appreciation to each one of you who came tonight. A few have had to leave us a little bit before this hour. You are my heroes. You have come to express your views about the public school system that you own. We are but stewards of the work that you desire for your public school system. I thank you for what you shared, what I was able to hear of your views, your dreams, your goals, your experiences with public education in Gwinnett County. And the one lesson that I take away from it, and I mentioned this to our board earlier tonight, our whole board, Mr. Wilbanks, Chairman Blair, Mr. Knudsen, Dr. Therese, and Ms. Karen Watkins, the message that I take away from it is we have great work to do. We are a whole board, and we must find a way, because that's what you expect of us, and we want to earn your trust. We will work together and make certain that we are able to deliver on that. Mr. Wilbanks, I want to thank you especially for the great reports that we had today. They were extremely important in terms of building a whole school system and continuing to make it great. I want to congratulate you, Chairman Blair. We're so very proud that you, as a graduate of Gwinnett County Public Schools, have come to this point of honor. And it's a pleasure to serve on the board with you in this position. And I want to share a special appreciation to you, Ms. Watkins, for your coming to provide us leadership and to serve as our vice chair. There are going to be some great ways that we'll all benefit from your leadership. And Dr. Therese, I congratulate you on your honor of being elected to board office, and I'm looking forward very much to working with you. And Mr. Knudsen, you and I have a lot of territory up in Sugar Hill and Swanee to take care of, and it'll be a great pleasure to do that. So enough from me. I want to express my great appreciation and thank each one of you for the privilege of serving as your District 3 school board member. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Mr. Knudsen?
Now, don't go getting all high and mighty with me, since I'm going to be down there next month. Congratulations, Mr. Blair. Well-deserved. Congratulations, Ms. Watkins, on the vice chair. I'm going to continue like I normally do, and I'm just going to call out that we've got great staff. From top to bottom, we've got great staff, and they work extremely hard. They do so much for our kids. Tonight's presentations were, again, fantastic. Mr. Gomez, that's the longest presentation we've heard from you. I loved it. Animated, energetic. It was great. And it really covered a lot of wonderful things about how we do what we do here at GCPS. And Dr. Tashline, thank you as well. Work on your energy, would you, Kev? And Mr. Thigpen and the community schools presentation, the pandemic update from Dr. Flint. We have great people from the very top to the very bottom, and every one of our teachers and staff and transportation, bus drivers, food services. You are GCPS, and you're what makes us excellent. And I appreciate you. I appreciate the people who have come out and shared their voices with us tonight and stayed late. And so I'm going to try to keep my remarks short. I will continue to advocate for the most options, for the most people to make the best decisions for their kids. And that, to me, is a choice for face-to-face instruction or virtual. It makes the absolute most sense. Our numbers, we can go to all the external data, but we've had 100,000 people in our schools for an entire semester, and our numbers are fantastic. There is one study I will reference, though. In the UK, they studied 15 million people. 15 million people, and what they found was that not only were students safe, but families who had students had a lower incident rate.
And I really want to challenge each of us that sitting on this desk to make sure we do whatever we need to do to lower the temperature and make sure that we do the work. They don't need to be a party to bickering, particularly from the governing board. And I appreciate each of you. I appreciate what we can do, not necessarily what we've done so far, but what we can do. It needs to be a board that Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilbanks. Thank you all for making it to the end. We're officially in Friday morning. The board, Superintendent Wilbanks, and I appreciate your attendance and interest in Gwinnett County Public Schools. As our public meeting has concluded, this facility will be closing in 15 minutes. Thank you for being here with us tonight, and drive home safely. Meeting